Hey guys, it's your old pal Tony Giles TG here, welcoming you once again back into the record room. And this is the dawning of a brand new era on the record room, because from this episode on, each and every episode of the record room will now make its debut over on our YouTube channel. In the past, we've debuted every episode over on Patreon, but from now on, everything will hit YouTube first. And mainly the reason behind this is I never wanted to make money from the record room or any of the projects I've done in the past. It's always been about sharing my love and passion for records and record collecting and music in general with you guys out there. And so that's why every episode from now on will hit YouTube. However, if you are a patron of the record room, well, what do you now get for your money? Well, of course, you still get the same perks as viewer polls and being able to reach out to me directly and some bonus content, but you'll also get the sounds from the Record Room podcast, because each and every episode of the Record Room will now have an accompanying podcast featuring music and chat from the show. So essentially, watching the show is one half of the experience, but then listening to the podcast is the other half. And if that sounds like something you'd want to do, all you have to do is head on over to patreon.com, search for the Record Room, and pledge $1 a month. That's it. Every podcast works out to 50 cents an episode. In fact, it works out less than that because we have to pay a Patreon fee on top of that. So if the idea of continuing the show appeals to you, head on over there for just $1 a month. You get to listen to some cuts from the show and also some more chat from me. But there we go. That's it from me. That's the plugs and bits and pieces out of the way. So because this is a new era, I figured to keep things nice and clean, we're going to class this episode as number one, the first episode of season 2 of the Record Room. I think we reached 7 or 8 episodes in season 1, which was a good trial run, but now I'm kind of getting into the swing of things. I figured we'd start a brand new season. So this is episode 1 of season 2, and if you head on over to Patreon, you'll be able to listen to episode 1 of the Sounds from the Record Room podcast, featuring the cuts I'm about to talk about on this episode. I'm going to kick off with an album that I wanted this when it first came out, like badly, because this artist is one of my absolute favorites. I've been listening to her music for probably around 10 years now, but the price on this record was insane for what it was. Now, it is a double LP and it is on colored vinyl, but as someone that works in the music industry and makes records for a living, I know exactly how much this thing probably cost to make, and the retail price on it was just insane. And it wasn't just overpriced, you know, from my point of view, in one store. No, it was very expensive everywhere. So even though I wanted to buy it last year, I thought, nope, I'm not paying that, because this isn't about supporting the artist at all. This is just, I felt it was greedy. However, everything is starting to open back up now in the UK, and my wife and I recently took a trip to get some fresh air, spread our wings, go out and about for the first time in 3 months, and I found a copy of said record, and it was insanely cheap considering how much it had started off as. And the album in question is the latest album from Taylor Swift. Now, some of you guys, again, you may be thinking, Taylor Swift? But, you know, I covered Lady Gaga on the last episode, and I'm a huge fan of female vocalists. And I happen to think that Taylor Swift is fantastic. Like I said, I've been listening to her music for about 10 years. I think she's a great songwriter. I think she's a great role model. I think she's fantastic. She is definitely somebody I would have no issue with my daughter looking up to when she's a little bit older. But love her. The recent album from Taylor Swift, as I mentioned, it's a double LP, and it's, you know, it's a fairly nice package. Like I said, both albums, coloured vinyl and everything. This album in retail stores was $39.99, so the best part of £40, which that's too. I mean, there are labels out there that will sell a double LP for like £25, maybe £30 at a push, but £40 for this, and I just thought I'm not going to do that. As much as I wanted it, because I like the album, I couldn't bring myself to pay £40 for it. But the other day, I happened to catch it, and I think it's either in a sale or there was some kind of special offer. I ended up paying $16.99 for this, so £17, which is more than half off, which is pretty good as far as I'm concerned. Now, that could be because the album was so overpriced when it first came out that lots of people didn't buy it and they just waited. Could be that. Or it could just be that, you know, they're running an offer and they're reducing the price on it. I don't know. And I don't know if it's reduced everywhere, but I will say I picked this up in a well-known UK retail chain. So make of that what you will. But the album itself, I think the album is absolutely pure pop perfection. Every track on there is fun. The ballads are great. The pop songs are super catchy. The track she did with Brendan Urie from Panic at the Disco, Me, super catchy. I really love the track The Archer, which is the final track on side A. As far as pop albums go, this and the Lady Gaga are probably my two favourites from the last couple of years. I mean, the list does change though, but the album itself, like I said, it's 2 LPs, and you do get the lyrics, which is nice. You know, you don't get lyrics all the time these days with even pop artists. But the record itself, it's one pink disc that looks like that, very pink, and one, I believe they class it as blue, but it's kind of like it is blue, but it's more, I'd say it's more aqua, more, it kind of looks greenish to me, especially when you shine a light through it, which I know a lot of people don't do, especially if you're listening to it on a turntable, because most turntables don't have lights in them. But it's nice, and for a coloured LP or 2 coloured LPs, I have to say the sound quality is really good. In fact, I tweeted the other day that I was really surprised at how well this was mastered, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say it probably wasn't mastered strictly for vinyl, but as a vinyl pressing goes, this has a really nice bottom end to it. You can really feel kind of the power behind some of these songs, so I'm super happy I was finally able to add this to my collection, and it just goes to show that sometimes patience is definitely a virtue that all record collectors have. I know sometimes that's not always the case, but I managed to save myself over half waiting a few months to pick this up. So in the end, I say it was probably worthwhile, but as far as pop albums go, Taylor Swift's Lover is definitely something I'd recommend. Now, if you've ever listened to one of my podcasts in the past, you'll know that I'm a big fan of leaping from one place to another in an instant. And I'm going to go from Taylor Swift to the Black, the Priest of Satan. Yeah, this is some great black metal. In fact, this album was recorded in 1993, but I've only recently picked this up. This is a 2018 reissue of the album that's available now and comes on 180 gram black vinyl. And this is very much in the vein of the classic era of Norwegian black metal. So your Dark Thrones, your Mayhem, Burzum, bands like that were around in those early days that kind of created those iconic albums that are still referenced today and people are still copying today, and even now still sound amazing. I knew the band The Black, or knew the project The Black, but it's just something I hadn't picked up. And the other day I was noodling around online and it popped up as a suggestion. I thought, oh wow, it's been so long since I've heard that. And I played the album from start to finish, and I thought, I've got to add this to my collection. This not being in my collection and being a black metal fan is just kind of sacrilege. So I went online, I looked around, and even the first price, I mean, it's selling for good money, but not like crazy money. But then I was on the Osmos Productions website, I think it's Osmos or Osmos website, and they had this version here, which is the 2018 repress, and it's got some nice almost spot varnish finish on the cover, which I didn't know at the time. It's just a nice matte finish. But they had a 180 gram vinyl repress on black vinyl, which, you know, I'm a fan of, and it was 15.99 euros. Which is insanely expensive, insanely cheap rather. 15.99 euros, that works out to about £13, I think. And when you add the shipping on top of that, it still worked out to cheaper than most regular single disc retail albums. And it shipped from, I believe it actually shipped from Norway or somewhere over there in Scandinavia. And what's fantastic about this, and this completely blew my mind, I ordered it on a Thursday and it arrived on the next Tuesday. Now, post in the UK takes longer than that these days. So the service, just that kind of added to my excitement of getting it. It was just so cool, so well packaged, insanely cool, album, and it arrived really quickly and straight from the gate. I put it on the turntable and it just sounds amazing. And you get this nice printed insert. Actually, it's not an insert. I correct myself there. This is actually an inner sleeve. You can put the record inside this, but it doesn't. The record doesn't come inside this. It comes in its own poly sleeve as well, which is not something not all labels do, which I'm a fan of. I would show you the other side, but I wonder if I can. There are some naughty words, so I'm going to hold these up because this is a family show, folks. But as far as I'm concerned, packaging, the printing on this, it's so nice. You won't be able to probably pick this up from the TV screen, but the red accents are highlighted almost like spot varnish. It's so well done. And as I said, the album straight from the gate, it just sounds so good. It sounds like, an oncoming army. It's such a great album. And if you are curious, if you're not a black metal fan, but you're curious about black metal and, some of the mystique behind it, remember, if you are a patron of the Record Room, you can head on over to our Patreon page and you'll be able to hear a little slice of this on the Sounds from the Record Room podcast. Now, I will be featuring more black metal in the future. I've ordered a ton of things to featuring future episodes, but actually nothing's arrived yet. So you're going to have to stick with the black for now, but trust me, that is a damn good starting place. A little while ago, I recorded my first Talking Tracks episode, which was an episode of the Record Room that just featured soundtracks. As I've said many times before, what you can see behind me, these are a portion of my soundtracks on vinyl collection. And I will be doing more episodes of Talking Tracks in the future. In fact, the next episode, it's in the planning stages, but it's focused on one album or one soundtrack and different versions, different variants of that album. And I've got quite a few now, but I'm waiting for a couple more before I do a complete episode, because I plan to do something pretty cool with the podcast that will accompany that episode. So for the time being, I'm going to talk about some soundtracks on the regular episodes of the Record Room until I'm able to record episode 2 of Talking Tracks. And I have a soundtrack here now, and it's a very well-known soundtrack, a very popular soundtrack to a very popular film in the horror franchise, but it's slightly different in the case that this one is... The cover is weird. The cover is weird. If you follow me personally on Instagram, which you can do as at From the Record Room, I post records from my collection there, but it's separate from the Record Room's social media accounts. But I saw this a little while ago, and it's one of those things where I just thought, that's so weird and odd. I kind of need to have it. Like I spoke about the Italian pressing of Maniac on the last episode. It's so different that something about it, I was just like, yeah, no, that's kind of crazy. And this is actually the French pressing of John Carpenter's Halloween. And if you've ever seen the original cover for Halloween 2, well, it basically looks very similar to Halloween in the fact that it's got, kind of the pumpkin on the front with the face superimposed in. But this is just odd because, all right, it does have Michael Myers, and it does have a big knife and some cops and what looks to be some sort of small town or a farmhouse or something. It's just weird. It's just weird. I like it because it's so weird. And it's exactly the same as every pressing of Halloween 2, from the original to the Death Waltz reissue. It's great, and it sounds really cool. It's a really, really nice pressing. This version, it doesn't actually say here. Oh, it does. 1982 is when I believe this came out. And this record isn't super expensive. You can find this... you can find it on Discogs fairly easy. I actually picked this up on eBay around the same time that I picked up the Maniac as well. And I think I ended up paying, I want to say it was like £15, something like that. So it actually worked out cheaper than most kind of like reissues that are available now. And it comes with this nice purple label on the old Milan records. It comes on the old Milan records label with a nice purple colour, which you don't see all the time. I just like it. Face A and face B for side A and side B. Just different. I don't own many French pressings, and the ones I do own all have kind of bonkers covers. So maybe I need to start looking more into French pressings of things. If I should do that, reach out to me, let me know on the social media. But I mean, it's just weird, right? Even as if you're not a soundtrack fan, you can just look at that and go, that's different. Anyway, Halloween 2 is a fantastic score. I've always kind of equated it as being the more disco version of Halloween. And that's no bad thing at all. That to me is a plus. So if you've never listened to Halloween 2, be sure to check it out. Now, on the day of recording this episode of The Record Room, it's actually Father's Day in the UK, and my wife and my daughter are in the other room. My daughter's having her morning nap, and so I've taken some time to steal away and record an episode of The Record Room. And what I'm about to show you next, I did an unboxing video of this over on our YouTube channel, and this was an early Father's Day gift and something that completely took me by surprise and bowled me over. This is an original pressing of John Carpenter's Escape from New York, which I unboxed, as in I opened from brand new. Now, this record is 1981, so that is 39 years old, or something like that. This album should not be sealed. This should have been purchased, opened, and worshipped for the greatness that is within the grooves, because this is Escape from New York is one of those scores, one of those soundtracks that has gone on to define an entire genre, an era of soundtrack music that has, I mean, it's still resonating today. People are constantly using Escape from New York and John Carpenter's music as a reference. And I just realized I'm doing 2 John Carpenter albums back to back. Why didn't I think of that before? But yeah, so Escape from New York, I've never had an original pressing of this before. And this is the American version as well. And it's so dead mint. It is so incredibly dead mint. It's so crisp and so fresh. And tremendously grateful to my wife and daughter for obviously gifting this to me. But how it sounds is, that was kind of the biggest thing for me. I'd heard that friends of mine had done some comparisons with various different pressings of Escape from New York. And I did something similar a little while ago with Suspiria. And I don't have every version of Suspiria, but the versions I had, I found out that the original version, or the earliest pressing I had of it, which happened to be a UK test pressing, sounded the best. So Escape from New York being one of my favourite movies and also one of my favourite soundtracks, I wanted to hear how the original sounded compared to some of the reissues that have come out throughout the years, and I was not disappointed. I listened to this thing at kind of ear-splitting levels, and it was so good. The bass, it just, you know, when that early theme, when you just, and it kicks in, oh, man alive, it was so good. So much so that I would recommend, even those of you out there that have the expanded edition, yeah, it's great to have kind of that extra stuff if you need it. I'd still say track down an OG copy if you can. It is mastered so well, and it is so good. It sounds like a different score to me. It's given it new life that I never thought possible. If you have the means and you are able, get yourself a copy of Escape from New York, the original pressing. And now for something completely different. Now, I am, let's say this, let's say this politely, I am in my early 40s now. So when I started listening to alternative music, rock music, heavy metal, that kind of thing, it was very early 90s. And during that time, there were already some staple bands that you just kind of gravitated towards: Metallica, Guns N' Roses, that kind of a thing. And one of the bands that were around at the time, Faith No More, I was kind of a cursory fan of. You know, I liked the singles, I liked Epic and some of the tracks from Angel Dust, but I didn't really get into them. Even though I was a fan of Mike Patton's voice, I think he's one of the greatest singers that we have. I found myself kind of leaning towards more of his side projects, so the Mr. Bungle and the Phantom Ass and the Tomahawk, but never really got into Faith No More. And many years ago, Mike recorded this album called Mondo Connie, which is a collection of Italian pop songs and standards, all sung in Italian, and performed with this wonderful orchestra. And back when that album came out, I did buy the CD, because I think it was only available on maybe CD and digital at the time, or maybe just CD. And I loved it. It's so wonderful. It's the kind of album you can play to anybody. Nobody would be offended by this. It's so beautiful, and Mike Patton's voice is just so rich and fantastic. And the way he sings these songs, there is so much passion and kind of oomph with his delivery that it's hard. It really is hard not to just fall in love with it. A little while ago, I was kind of like, oh, you know, it's one of those albums that I'd like to have on vinyl. And I genuinely did not know there was a pressing. But there was. This version, I think this version actually, I mean, it says on the back 2010. If this album is 10 years old, what have I been doing? I am clearly looking in the wrong places for some of my records. This is out through Ipecac. And this, it's a single disc, but the packaging is, I'm going to try and show you the packaging on this, because I remember the CD came as a digipack, but this is something else. So that's the sleeve, which then opens up and you can see the world inside. And then that also opens up. So you have this really cool, like, trifold cover. These pretty cool, insane, trippy, like, images. It's such a nice package, and I have a card inside. This is cool. So you actually do get a digital download with the album, and most record companies that do that, there will be a piece of printed card. This is the card that comes in the album for the digital version, but it's an actual card. This is an actual plastic card, or maybe it's not plastic, but it's plastic-like, that comes with a download code for the album. So even that was just like, wow, that's a really nice touch. And then the record itself comes in this gorgeous printed inner sleeve. And it's not laminated, but it's like a shiny printed cover. And the album itself, I mean, it feels heavy. It does feel heavy. It could be 150 gram. I don't think it's 180, but it's definitely more than 140. But it's just great. And what's super cool about this album, especially if you are a soundtrack fan, there is a cover on here of the song Deep Deep Down from the movie Danger Diabolique, which Ennio Morricone did the score for, and is sadly not available. But this record is so good. So good. You don't have to be a Mike Patton fan. You don't have to be a fan of Italian pop songs. You just need to listen to this. And this is available on all DSPs. You can check this out pretty much as soon as you're hearing this. But it's good. If I do have any Italian viewers and you're not aware of this album, I would say you'll probably get a huge kick out of this, because it is just superb. And this, I want to say I paid around £20 for this. It was not expensive, in the packaging and the delivery and everything. If it had cost more, I'd have paid more, because it is just that good. And remember, if you head on over to our Patreon, I will play you a couple of my favorite cuts from this album. But Mondo Connie by Mike Patton, seriously, check this album out ASAP. Hard to believe, but we are already at the end of another episode of The Record Room, but fret not, we will be back in just 2 very short weeks. And the album I want to finish up with, this is the definition of a classic. This is an absolute classic. It's probably in 99% of the people watching this is probably in your collection, or you've at least listened to it, or you know 90% of the tracks on this album. And I picked this up because my original version of this sadly has long gone, long gone, and I wish I still had it because it did have the original cover as well before that version was withdrawn. The album in question is the Guns N' Roses debut, Appetite for Destruction. I say debut because it's their proper debut album. I think Lies came before that, but that's half covers, half live, that kind of a thing. This is, I want to say, like, I don't actually know if this is an anniversary of the album, but they just did this really like cool elaborate package, and there was some insane box set version as well. But I like the album, I like Guns N' Roses, but I don't need a kind of super deluxe box set. I'm happy with just the regular deluxe version or the limited edition version that I have here, which again, it looks super impressive. When I took it out of the packaging, I was thinking, you know, for the money I paid, this is pretty good. And I think I paid just under £30. I think it was $29.99, something like that. And on the front, you get this huge hype sticker. And for those people out there that cut out hype stickers and think you're crazy, you know, I do it. I've spoken about it before. I cut out hype stickers all the time. I have piles of them. If I don't put them with the album, I keep them to one side. When I play the album, if I come across it, I'll go and file it. You're okay, you're in good company. On the front cover of the album, the hype sticker says limited edition foil slipcase with Robert Williams original jacket art, 2LP 180 gram audio file reissue with a gatefold sleeve, which is true. Remastered for the first time from original stereo analog tapes, blah, 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 blah. Digital download code included for CD quality digital edition of the album. Guns N' Roses logo hologram. Oh, no, I correct myself. Guns N' Roses logo hologroove hologram. Yeah, we'll come back to that though. So the album itself comes in this really cool foil slipcase. Now it is the plastic style slipcase, and it's printed with the cover that most of us are probably familiar with. And I'm moving it around a bit so I'm trying to catch the foil greatness in the light. And it's the front and back cover, as I said, of the album as most of us know it, because the original cover was withdrawn. So this is the album most of us used to. So this itself is very nice. It looks very cool. Instead of having the album cover as it once was, as a single image, they've now enlarged it to be the front and back of the sleeve. Now, the problem with this though, and I say this is probably the only downside to this, is when they've done this, they've literally stretched the image. So the actual, you look at it and it's kind of fuzzy. Like if you go down and look at some of the text at the bottom, it's blurry. It doesn't look great. It's a shame. And, you know, I'm sure if you're looking at this on your TV screen, it probably looks okay. It probably does look like the original artwork. But up close, it's not the best. And if I were in kind of whoever looked at this and said, yeah, that's cool, I put it this way, I would not have approved this. And I'm not saying, you know, they should have gone back to the original artwork, but they probably could have touched it up or done something to it, I don't know, used a single sleeve, a double wide sleeve, and put both records inside. But hey ho, on the inside you do get a nice of the era picture of Guns N' Roses, which is pretty cool. I'm a fan of that. And again, you know, it's just a printed sleeve. It's just a printed sleeve. You don't have to look at it. Inside you get 2 inserts, which is very nice. Lyrics on one side and a nice picture on the other, and there are 2 of those, which is very cool. And again, features of era photographs, which is pretty cool. And again, lyrics and credits on that one, which is pretty cool. And I'm going to talk about this hollow groove thing. So They expanded the album to split over 2 LPs. There's a fair amount of tracks on the album. It doesn't actually say 4, 8, okay, so there's 12 tracks on the album, but you know, some of those tracks are over 5 minutes. So back in the days, LPs were mastered a little bit differently. Would have sounded probably fine, but they've expanded it and they've split the tracks up to go over 2 LPs, which is great. However, it only goes over 3 sides. There's the G side, the N side, and the R side, which I do think is pretty cool. And then on the on the other side, which you don't play, which you don't listen to. You won't be able to see this, but I'm going to try some camera trickery and show you exactly what it looks like. There's this, which you may be able to pick up all these lines on here. Now, this is the hollow groove of the Guns N' Roses logo, which I'm going to show you now. So there you go. That's the Guns N' Roses logo, which, you know, it looks cool. Don't get me wrong, it does look cool. However, when are you ever going to look at it? Honestly, like when are you ever going to flip the record and stand there and shine a light on it? Because you have to do that. There's no easy way to put the record on your turntable, hit start or hit on or whatever, and you won't be able to see it. You need a light source on it to pick up the hologram. So it's kind of, you have to go to the effort of looking at this thing, and there's no music. So you're just standing there watching a hologram go round. So yeah, it's a neat thing. Of course it is, but do you need it? Really? Would it not have been cooler to have like some live cuts from the record, from the time? I'm sure they probably could have found 4 live tracks from the era. You know, maybe some outtakes, could have done something like that. I don't know. I think it's the second LP I have that has one of these hollow groove things, but the other one I have is one of the Star Wars albums, The Force Awakens, I believe. And I think, I'm not 100% positive, but I'm pretty sure the side that features the hologram also has music on it. So you listen to the music and you can also get the benefit of this kind of effect. So for me, that was a much better choice, but I didn't make the record. I'm not saying it's not cool. I think it is. As far as, you know, deluxe versions go, it's pretty cool. I will say that. My favorite part is, obviously aside from music, is the foil cover. This is so cool looking. It really, really does stand out as being like, wow, that's badass. That looks luxury. So for the £30, I mean, they could have just reissued it as a double LP. Nothing, you know, no remaster, no nothing is £30, and people would probably still buy it. But, you know, if you are on the hunt for a copy of Appetite for Destruction and you're not bothered about having an OG version, sure, grab this. It sounds great. You know, Rocket Queen, Sweet Child of Mine, Paradise City, Mr. Brownstone, they all sound fantastic. But that's just because they're fantastic songs. The only thing I think that lets it down is the hollow groove. And it's a minor nitpick, but it's just, it looks really cool. I'm never really going to use it, ever. I'm probably never going to look at it outside of filming it for this video. So, I don't know. Well, there you have it, folks. We've come to the end of another episode of The Record Room. So thank you, as always, for joining me. Be sure to follow us on social media at The Record Room Show. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. And I'm slowly starting to get the hang of TikTok. So if you are a TikToker, make sure you go and give us a follower. And as always, remember, be kind, be courteous, wash your hands, stay gold, and spin those blackest circles.